Hey, I'm Jason. Welcome to an unboxing for Marvel United. This is the Spider-Geddon core box set. So this is actually part of year 3 or season 3 of the Marvel United, the multiverse saga. So we are getting Spider-Geddon, which of course brings Spider-Man from across the multiverse to fight against Morlun. As well as we have some other villains. We have Spot in there. We have a bunch of different Spidey characters. This is a really cool core set to start out with. If you haven't played, for some reason you haven't picked up the first or the second core sets that came out, this is a really neat one to actually pick up because it does have a bunch of really cool stuff. So we're going to get 6 different playable heroes. Scarlet Spider, Penny Parker, known as Spider, Spider-Punk, Silk, Symbiote Spider-Man, and Spider-Man Noir. But we also get Anti-Venom and Superior Spider-Man as anti-heroes, which means they're both playable as heroes and as villains. So that means you technically get 8 playable characters in this box, which gives you a lot of different stuff to play around with and switch at. And then we also have Morlun and Spot, as well as Anti-Venom and Superior Spider-Man that act as villains. You have 4 different villains. So there's a lot of content in this game. Other fun things is there's some other stuff added to this game. I'm not going to go over the core rules of the game. You can check out one of my older videos for that. But I do want to just point out some of the newer or different stuff they added to the game. So, of course, we have a lot of new tokens, all that stuff, and we'll take a look at those in a minute. Otherwise, the gameplay plays the same as any other Marvel United game. Nothing changed in any of the regular rules. With the exception is they have some brand new stuff. So one new thing, which we'll hop into a little bit more detail when we get into it, is equipment cards. So various characters come with equipment. Now, not every single character has one. Not every character has the same amount, and they don't all work directly the same way. But basically, if you have one, you can remove one of your character's double wild equipment cards from the deck. So you're going to start the game with one less card, but you start with their number of equipment cards out. And they're going to be dual-sided, so they'll have a gear on one side. And then some of them are one-time use. You use them, they're done. Other ones you can use, then you can recharge them to use them a second time. Just these extra little bonus cards that give the characters a little bit more like pizzazz for something they do. So like lots of the Spider characters get web shooters. So multiple of them have the exact same web shooter card. But then you get other characters. So if we start getting into the Marvel United set proper, when that starts coming out and I do the unboxing, we'll see more of them like Hawkeye's bow or Captain America's shield. And we have several different Captain Americas. They all have Captain America's shields. There are Iron Man's repulsors. And there's different versions of Iron Man character, like Iron Man, War Machine, Hulkbuster, who have them too. So there's a couple ones that are always repeated, but they're just supposed to be add a little bit more thematic to the character. So that's definitely one thing that got added as well. Now, added in the second series, the X-Men series, was supervillain mode. So basically what this will do, this will include superhero and supervillain cards, which we'll look over these specifically. Probably in part 2 of the video. I'll probably do the heroes in one, villains in the second half, just so you don't get too long. But this lets one of the players actually actively take part as playing as one of the villains. So rather than just have it be 4 players against an automated AI, you get to have someone actively play, which means they're going to be a little bit harder to fight because instead of it just being the top card of the deck that's revealed to fight against, the opponent, or the player who's playing as a villain, gets to choose between 3 cards, the 2 in their hand and the one they draw at the beginning of the turn. So they have more options, so they can kind of, instead of just randomly moving 3 spots, the villain can now decide if they want to move 2 or 3 spots, depending on which cards they have. Then they also get these extra supervillain cards, which have triggers. Certain thing happens, they'll add extra bonuses, but the heroes also get some as well. So this is just a neat way to give heroes and characters a little bit extra gameplay value. So that's kind of a new mode that's sort of newish to the game. Then we have a brand new solo mode. So there is an older solo mode to play. This is a little bit different. So what basically the quick breakdown of this is, you play your regular hero, you have your equipment, whatever. Then you take 4 other heroes and you grab 3 cards each of their special cards that have special effects on them. And you make a 12-card deck. And then at any given time, their deck will be here. You'll have 2 cards face up. So during your turn, you can either play like normal, draw a card, play one of your cards, or you can opt to use one of the cards on the table instead. So it's giving you the option of letting your other heroes jump in, give you a little bit different than what just normally your deck does, but without you having to like actually shuffle together like multiple decks of cards together. So I'm playing as Scarlet Spider, but these other heroes can jump in and help me without me having to shuffle like 2 or 3 hero decks together just to make a bigger deck. Or having to move multiple heroes around the table. It's kind of a unique way to play that. The only other big note on here is this: on heroes' turns, immediately following each villain's turn. So normally you play 3 cards, and then a villain goes, you play 3 cards. You must always play a regular hero. So it's villain plays their master plan. You play one of your cards, then one of your next 2 cards could be either yours or an ally's. So that's cool. And then you can also, if you really want to get fun, super villain versus solo mode. So you can play 1-on-1, where one player plays as the villain, one plays as the hero. So definitely some interesting new stuff in this game. And yeah, I didn't go through all the specific rules of that. If that's something you're interested in, let me know. I can always maybe do a second video on that. So here we have all our tokens. Of course, we have a bunch of our thugs, our threats, random hand token. I believe that's what that says. I'm going to look up what that token does because I don't remember. Randomly play or face down. If the effect makes a hero play their next card randomly, place this next to, just as a reminder. Crisis tokens, hit point tokens. If we flip this over, we have our civilians on the back. Opposite side of the random is the invulnerability token. So if you have something that would let you prevent damage, you can put this token on your character just as a reminder. Then on sheet 2, we have all of our actions, our wilds, our attacks, our moves, our heroics tokens, plus regular game. We have targeted tokens that go with Spider-Man Noir. We have Spider-Bots that goes Superior Spider-Man. We have Spot tokens, which goes Spot, obviously. Some acceleration tokens, and if we flip that over, de-acceleration tokens, which for the master plan, either speeds your deck up or slows it down. And again, these are just extra reminder cards. More invulnerability tokens, and the no BAM token. So plenty of stuff to use with your regular game. Alright, we looked at those. Let's hop into some of the fun stuff. So the other couple of cards we have are the challenge cards, which you can get these in the other ones. So if you'd like to play a special mode, you can do regular challenge mode here. Just set up, each hero moves 1 wild card from their hero deck. So you have 1 less card, which is essentially your health. But it also makes you see the extra wild, or hard mode where you move a double. Now you have to remove these. Basically, you're playing the hard challenge if you add the equipment in. And then you and also, or if you're playing some of the other modes like solo mode, you're going to move one of them because you're using the other character cards. Because you also get battle plan cards as well for that mode to help out. So you get other things to supplement those. And then we just have our regular challenges of defeat thug, rescue civilians, and clear threats. And those are with our dashboard. Just a one-sided dashboard, nothing extra special on there. Same as it would be in any other base game. Cool. So we've looked at all those. So why don't we look at our locations first, and then we'll start jumping into our heroes. So our location. So on the back here, it's just going to be Marble Knight with Spider-Geddon on the top. Just as a reminder of what set it came from. And then we're going to have a bunch of various spider locations. I'm going to zoom my camera out just a little bit here. So we have the Sims Tower. So it says this location starts with 2 heroic tokens. The heroes may discard any number of heroic tokens here to ignore the same amount of damage. that's kind of interesting. It's kind of like a base of sorts. An end of turn effect is you may take one hero token from this location or add one hero token from the pool to this location. That's kind of cool. So if you get rid of that threat, now you can kind of spend time replacing them or getting rid of them. Helps you ignore damage, or you can just restore them, and then add them and take them to other locations. We're going to Japan for one of our locations. It's end of turn. If there are at least 2 empty slots in this location, you may add 2 thugs here to gain a movement, heroic, or action token. Cool. So you basically incite crime. We have the Horizons Lab. At the end of turn, you may turn based on one of your equipment cards to recharge. Turn face up any other equipment card in the game. So this one's neat, but it's going to be very specific to what characters you have. So again, some characters have multiple equipment, so this can definitely help you flip one to flip to the other. Other characters, though, that only have one equipment or don't have equipment, this is kind of useless. Although when the core multiverse set comes out, I believe it's in that box. It might be a stretch goal, so I don't want to 100% claim that until I actually get the box to verify it, as they did have generic equipment as well. So any character could play with equipment, which that'll be kind of fun. We get Parker's Residence. I like how sometimes we have blooming areas like Japan, and then we can drop down right in our Aunt May's house. End of turn, if you have 1 or 2 cards in your hand, you may draw 1 card. So basically healing. We have Las Vegas. At the end of turn, if the top master plan card is not revealed, you may guess it. If it adds more, you can guess if it adds more thugs or civilians. Then reveal it. If you guessed right, gain 1 wild token and leave the card revealed. Otherwise, put it back in the bottom of the deck. So there are other cards that might reveal this, but this is basically just so that you can't have 3 characters standing on there. One person reveals it, then at the end of the next player's turn, they can sit there and keep using that ability on that same master plan card. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting. You can gain some extra wild tokens. Alright, so those are kind of more of the generic areas we have. I know like Horizon Lab and Sims Tower are Spider-Man locations, as well as obviously Parker Residence. But then we have some more that are a little bit more specific to some of the Spider-Geddon stuff. Maybe not this as much, but we have Spider Island, which is fun storyline. This is the black box. This is a forced effect. I'm glad they brought these back. They had these in the X-Force box set. And I'm glad they added some more of these. Like, I don't want to see a ton of them, but it does make some of the threats areas kind of interesting. So end of the turn, if there are 1 or more thugs in this location, you must take 1 damage. Just penalizes you for uncovering that unless you have the area clear. This is kind of an interesting idea. Then we have Loom World. This is where Morlun and his group kind of hang out. End of turn, you may move to any other location. So it kind of works as like a Nexus area. You kind of see like we have like a pyramid, looks like a Stark Tower back there, a museum, a pagoda, so a bunch of different stuff there. And our last location is the Great Weaver Temple, the Spider Gods. End of turn, you may discard 1 card from your hand to the bottom of your deck to gain 1 heroic and 1 attack tokens. So sacrifice a card in your hand to gain extra tokens. Might be very beneficial depending on what you have. I don't need to move. I could use those better. That does give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 locations. I'm trying to remember if you use all 8 right off the bat. I want to say you only use 6 at a time, if I remember right. Yep, so you only use 6 at a time, so you'll have 2 extra. So again, this adds to the value of this being a core set or a beginner set for somebody, because you have 2 other options to at least swap out with without buying another set. Of course, and again, always interchangeable with everything else. Alright, so let's head right into some of our heroes. So this being Spider-Man set, we're going to start with good old Spidey. This is the Symbiote Spider-Man. So yeah, if you want regular Spider-Man, you'll have to buy one of the other sets, but we do get a variation of Peter Parker here. That's definitely a cool model with that webbing. And again, they could have just made this black suit Spider-Man, but the fact that they made it symbiote Spider-Man is really neat. So there's the back of his cards. We can kind of just get a better look at what he looks like. Plus, I love this little chibi design here. Is always fun. So he does have a starting card. So this is another thing they've added if you haven't played since the base set, the X-Men expansion, Season 2, Year 2 added starting cards. So some characters will have these, which are cards they just have to start with in the beginning of their turn. So this starts in your hand and it gives you an additional ability right away. Lots of times, they work as if they're in the storyline, you gain an extra bonus. So you don't have to play them on your first turn, but the longer they're in there, the more powerful they are. So here we have Spider Sense. As long as this card is based up in the storyline, once per villain turn, if a villain enters their movement in your location, you may immediately move to one adjacent one. Cool. So basically, it just lets him dodge out of the way really quickly. We're going to look at his basic cards. So he's got a heroic, a move heroic, an attack, a movement, a double attack, a move attack, and then of course his single wild and his double wild. Those are his basic ones that he's going to get. Kind of all around the board, but that's Spider-Man for you. I do wish his artwork had more like... I get he didn't really have lots of tendrils and things flailing off of him when he was a symbiote like Venom usually does, but I wish he would have had a little bit more of something like that in here. Because again, this could have just as easily be called Black Suit Spider-Man. That's alright though. His special abilities are great power. You get 2 attack for each thug defeated with this special effect. At the end of your turn, gain 1 action token. So basically, if there's thugs in there, you can spend 2 attack to take out 2 thugs and then gain your 2 tokens back. So it basically pays for itself, but it lets you get rid of a bunch of thugs really quickly. He also has a great responsibility, which is the same, very similar idea. Spend 2 heroic for each civilian rescued the special effect. At the end of your turn, gain 1 wild token. So rescue 2 civilians malleable wild tokens, which are better than, so they can be attack or whatever. So those are really cool as well. So you're going to benefit from him going to full areas and taking out multiple threats, arresting multiple civilians. Then his last one is Symbiote Enhancement. You may attack twice. If you do, on your next turn, you must play your card randomly. Yeah, so it's kind of weird, right? He gets double attack, but he has to play next card randomly. But it's not going to be, I guess, so terrible. But it's a little bit different. Alright, let's look at our another Spider character. So this is one of our interesting characters, because it's a Spider-Man adjacent character. We have Silk. So there's, show off her card right there. Cindy Moon. So, if I remember the lore correctly, she was bitten by the exact same spider as Peter Parker. Not really sure why she's sitting on a grave, per se. Yeah, she's bitten by the same spider as Peter Parker. And then she gained all his same abilities and everything, but she was kind of like whisked away by, I want to say, like Madam Web, but I might be wrong on that. But she does have some starting hand cards too. Yeah, so she's kind of like almost Peter Parker's like sister, not blood related but spider related. So she has Silk Sense. As long as this card is based up on the storyline, once per villain turn, your villain ends your movement at your location may immediately move to an adjacent one. Hey, much like Symbiote Spider-Man, but it says if you do ignore the first damage, you would take that turn. So she gains a little bit better ability for that. She also gets to start with organic webbing. As long as this card is based up on the storyline. If there are no move cards, no move symbols at the bottom of the 2 latest hero cards in the storyline, you may perform 1 free move on your turn, and it gets her a wild. So it's kind of neat, because that way if you can, you have this to start with, but it lets you get a free movement. Again, the sooner you play this, the better, and then that way if someone doesn't play a movement, you know that she can gain a free movement out of it. Then her regular cards, you have a heroic, move heroic, attack, movement, heroic attack, and move attack. So again, a little bit kind of all around. Then her 2 different wild cards. And then her 2 special ones, just Spider Agility, moving heroic with extra movement, or claws where she has moving attack with an attack on the bottom. So very cool. Alright, so we've had the original Spider-Man, enhanced by a symbiote, of course, and we've had Silk, who's a very similar Spider-Man character. So let's get another version of Peter Parker. Whoops, we have good old Ben Reilly here, his clone, or Scarlet Spider, who has the good old hoodie on. Is jumping off, like, I don't even know what kind of, just some sort of like ground fixture, statue, not really sure. But yeah, he's got the unique 90s design of wearing a hoodie. Should I drop these down just a little bit more? Maybe I can zoom back out a bit. Alright, so he has a starting card as well, imagine that, right? Lots of the Spider-Man characters have the same type of cards. He has his Spidey Sense. But now his is different than both of theirs, which again, this is fun. Gain 1 wild token. As long as this card is face up on the storyline, you may discard any number of wild tokens to ignore the same amount of damage. Cool, so he gets to start out with 1. But now this isn't one that has to be played in the storyline immediately. It works better when it does, but you can play this whenever you would want. And then he has his regular cards. He has movement, attacking, move heroic, move attack, double heroic, and double attack. So he gets a little bit more movement and a little bit more double stuff. And there's wild cards, of course. And then he also gets great power, which works just like symbiote Spider-Man's. Double each one, gain a token, and then he also gets great responsibility. So it's kind of neat because he's very similar to the symbiote Spider-Man, except he has a different Spidey Sense card, and he has some other different cards. His power cards are basically the same, but he also has an equipment card, because he has his web shooters attached to his wrist there. It says Scarred Spider on the side, so you know it belongs to him. Use on your turn, move or move 1 civilian thug from an adjacent location to your location, so web swinging them in, then turn the space down. And then you can flip it over and it has recharge. At the beginning of your turn, discard 1 action token to turn the space up. Yeah, so it's kind of cool there. So basically you can recharge his web swinging ability. Oop, I threw a card on the ground. I am wondering, though, because I thought that was a... Yeah, so at the start of a later turn, Scarred Spider decides to recharge his web shooter. He discards a token. So even though it's black, which most of the time means it's a forced ability, it's not. You can activate this whenever you would like. So whenever he has an extra action token to be able to use it for... You can go ahead and flip this back over and use it multiple times. Just kind of definitely a neat idea. The little mini cards there. Alright, that was our 3rd main Spider-Man. Why don't we keep the ball rolling and keep looking at Peter Parker's, as long as we're in that general idea. And we have Spider-Man Noir. Our detective one. I hope he's hanging on the wall. It's really cool. He's got his crossbow and everything. Or it's not crossbow, it's Gatling gun. I did not show off the back of the Scarlet Spider cards. So there's the back of his card. You definitely want to make sure you show them. It's awesome artwork on these cards. And the back of Spider-Man Noir. Of course, it's all black and white. It's actually the goggles on. I love it. The hat and the trench coat. He does also start with a starting card. He has Spider-Man Noir. He has the black suit. But not to be confused with the symbiote black suit. As long as this card is based up in your storyline, if you are alone in your location, you may ignore 1 damage dealt by the threat in each villain turn. Yeah, so if he goes solo, he gets to kind of play by himself, just to protect himself. Really neat idea. Again, I like the fact these starter cards kind of help, especially the ones that stay in the storyline. So if you play them early on, yes, it forces maybe your first or second turn. If you want to get the maximum use out of these abilities, but it also gets you a permanent effect you can constantly be using, which is really cool. Alright, so he has move and attack, move and heroic, heroic attack. And now this is what's cool. So then he has a wild and his double wild. He doesn't have a lot of basic cards. He is going to get a bunch of special effect cards. So he has, if there is too much power, attach 1 target token to a villain in your or adjacent location. So those are the little target tokens we had in the token box. I'm going to see if I can grab them without dumping everything on the ground. So he's got these little targets there. So you attach a target token to a villain in your or at your adjacent location. So by itself, that doesn't do anything. It's gonna act with another card he has. So he gets a second one of those with an attack symbol and a third one with a movement symbol. So you got 3 different ones. This follow-up is we have 3 of the exact same cards. We're gonna get 3 of these. They're the exact same, and it says, it's the responsibility of the people to take it away. So it's a take on the great power, great responsibility. It says, double attack against a villain with a target token in or an adjacent location. Then discard 1 target token from that villain. Yeah, so it's kind of neat. So basically, he can target an opponent, and then you can hit them from a space away or do double damage to them. Just by playing this card. So really cool. It's a different take on his character, or the character itself, so it's really neat. Alright, let's hop into our next Spidey character. We have up next, we have Spider-Man from Universe, I think it's 318? Am I right on that? Trying to find it. Oh, 138. From Universe 138. So this is our second multiversal Spider-Man, also known as Spider-Punk. Hobby Brown, I believe. I might be wrong on that name. But yeah, he's generally called Spider-Punk. He's from an anarchist kind of world. Grungy type punk metal atmosphere. But even in his comic books, he's one of those things like, people call him Spider-Punk, but his technical superhero name is Spider-Man. Much like Spider-Gwen or Ghost Spider is Spider-Woman in her universe. Just kind of like people saw them and they named them off of a picture, and that's kind of what they became. So then we have his artwork there. Yeah, he's got the spiky horns on there, which is kind of like a mohawk. He's got his guitar. It's on a giant boombox. Alright, so then his basic cards. He does not come with a starting card. So that's not every character will. But he's got an attack, move heroic, move attack, just an attack, and heroic. So there's a little bit more movement than everybody. Kind of bouncing around, escaping the law. He's double wild. And he's got a couple of different abilities. He's got Angry Heart. Perform as many attacks as a number of civilians in your current location. So yeah, this would definitely be helpful for him taking out a bunch of different characters. I do like this symbol up here. So this would be like his head spikes, but it just makes him look like Spider Unicorn. He's got 15,000 watts of punk rock. Attack a stunned token to a villain or henchman in your location. Next villain turn, their BAM is cancelled and the token is discarded. Which can be a very good lifesaver there. He has Anarchy on Earth 138. Attack up to 3 locations with any civilians in them, then discard 1 civilian from each of those locations. So you're not rescuing the civilians, but at least you're getting them off the board in case there was any other thing. But yeah, he's kind of trying to protect the people. And then his last one is Search and Destroy. Move to any location with a villain or henchman, and then attack there. So the other characters so far have all had like abilities that, yes, let you attack or do heroic effects or rescue people, but they're kind of have been roundabout like giving you a little bit more freedom. He's more like, I want to go where civilians are and I want to go take out villains. Like he's direct on what he's doing. Otherwise, this stuff aren't as good. So if there's, if for some reason wasn't a villain that you could attack and there was no henchman in play, this ability would be very pointless. He also gets a set of web shooters, which work the same way as Scarlet Spiders did. Move or pull a thug or civilian. Now, it works with him is because really good is he can pull civilians towards him, then use his abilities that involve having civilians. And then again, discard in action to play a space up. Alright, our last main regular hero is another multiverse hero. We got Penny Parker, also known as Spider, who is the name of her bot. It's SPD//R, I think. That's how it's spelled. Spider. It looks like it's like a code word. It's this giant robot that she gets to work with. I think she rides inside of it, actually. But yeah, that's definitely a cool miniature just in itself. I can't argue with that at all. But it's also a neat character. So, she does have a starting hand card. Let's look at her artwork quick here. So there she is. Her starting card is Metal Armor. So just Spider on there. And that's kind of neat. One without her because it's just for him. Metal Armor. As long as this card is face up in the storyline, you may ignore 1 damage during each villain turn. And it does provide a heroic. So it's kind of cool. And the artwork's going to kind of go back and forth between the two of them. So we do have move heroic, move attack, her wild, and her double wild. So she gets a lot of those. But now she has a bunch of other interesting cards. We're going to get 2 copies of Safety Net, which say, rescue 1 bystander in a location. You may use 1 battery to rescue an additional civilian in your or an adjacent location. So batteries are going to be her special equipment card. And we'll look at those in just a second. We have 2 copies of webs. So they give you move. You may use 1 battery to do a wild symbol. And then we have 2 copies of robot strength. So a rescue, a move, and an attack. Attack, you may use 1 battery to deal 1 extra damage to an enemy you are dealing damage to this turn. So that's kind of neat. She has 6 different cards that can also use batteries. She comes with 3 batteries. You start with all 3 of these in play. She says, use on your turn, activate the additional special effects on webs, safety net, or robot strength cards you played this turn. Then turn this card face down. Now, what's different about these are exhausted. Remove this card from the game. So these are one-time things. So you have 6 cards that use batteries, but you only have 3 batteries. So you're not going to get a constantly keep reshuffling and reusing these. So you got to be very strategic on what you do. So I would kind of put this, like her, Spider-Man Noir, is a little bit harder difficulty because they have cards that are specific on what they do. I'd probably say like Spider-Punk would maybe be like the next one in that row. He'd maybe like mid, just because he has ones that target with number of civilians. So the other three first ones are kind of like your easier characters. So we have two more heroes we want to look at in this version. These are anti-heroes, so they can be both heroes and villains, which make the game very fun. Although they can only be one at a time. If you play him as a hero, you can't play him as the villain as well. Alright. So we have Anti-Venom. So if you're not familiar with his story, is basically, this is Eddie Brock, regular knowing Venom. But like he had his Venom symbiote removed, then he got like, this special other Venom attached to him that basically works as an anti-Venom. It corrupts and it does not like the regular symbiotes. It's kind of weird because otherwise he essentially played or kind of looks and acts just like a regular symbiote. But there's his cards, his white version you may have seen. So it's like the anti-colors, he's white and black instead of black and white. But yeah, like he's actually poisonous touch to symbiote cards. Other symbiotes, which we'll kind of see a little bit in some of his artwork. So that's definitely cool. Now he does have a starting card as well, starting hand, who has Web Generator. So again, he's purple because he can be both colors, which is half between red and blue. As long as this card is face up in the storyline, if there are no move cards at the bottom of the two latest cards in the storyline, you may perform one move for free. So I've seen this before with Silk's card. But yeah, very, very interesting. Kind of works the same way. Generates a wild. Then he has his regular cards. We have a move and attack. We have just an attack. You can see piercing Venom there. This is a different Venom. At the time in the comic books, I want to say it was Max Gargan as Venom. Scorpion. Attack. Move heroic. Heroic attack. His wild. His double wild. Then he has 2 copies of Body Cleansing. Draw a card, then one hero in your location may discard all their crisis tokens. Now, this is very cool, because if you plan this based on what villain you're fighting, this could be very helpful, versus maybe some of the other ones that don't really use crisis tokens as much, and this might not be as useful. But that's where you could kind of tailor your game to make your game a little bit easier, depending on who you want to use. And then we have 2 copies of the Anti-Venom Serum. Rescue up to 2 civilians or defeat up to 2 thugs in your location. Just straight up, just defeat them or rescue them. Nothing extra special there. Now, it would have been kind of neat if he had something that affected Venom or symbiote characters, but realistically, that would have only been 3 other characters. Would have been Carnage, regular Venom, symbiote Spider-Man, and Flash Thompson, Agent Venom. So I think that's the only 4 symbiotes there are in the game as of right now, unless Null. I think Null is one as well. So it would have been like 5 characters. And I don't know if it would have been worth to have a special card or effect for 5 characters. Might have been neat as like an equipment card, but technically like it wouldn't have been equipment unless it had it like as an anti-venom serum like equipment. But then it would be like, yeah, anyone could really use that type of idea. But that's definitely cool that we got another Venom. You could technically play him with regular Venom, which is also a fun idea. Then that way you could pretend that Venom was one of the other Venoms. Alright, and our last hero, and that'll be the last one we'll show up in this video, and we'll do the villains in the next one, because this video is running a little bit long, is we have the Superior Spider-Man. So definitely looks sinister, because he is Doc Ock. So during the spoilers, during one of the storylines, Doc Ock basically kills Peter Parker, takes over his body, and is basically like, now I have this useful, superpowered body, I'm going to use it. But his kind of like Peter Parker's personality or morals or whatever melded into Doc Ock and essentially made him be like, hey, you know what? I am going to become a better Spider-Man than Spider-Man. He's definitely got a neat costume. He used his genius ability to start using more tech. Although it was a little bit more lethal, also since he doesn't have Peter Parker's memories. He doesn't realize, know, like, who's good, who's bad, who knows who he is, and stuff like that. So he's not always trusting of other people. He is a little bit more brutal. But he does a lot of stuff that Peter Parker didn't do, and then he does when he turns back, like, again, using he's a genius level brain to make technology and use that to his advantage. So we're going to look at a couple of different things here. He has 2 starting hand cards. So he's got Spider Bots, which are also represented by tokens. So you got little Spider Bots there. This is one of the tech things he deploys. It says, as long as this card is based up in your storyline, on your turn, you may add 1 Spider Bot token in your location if there are none. Once on each of your turns, you may use one of your heroic or attack actions as if you were in a Spider Bot's location. So it's kind of neat. So basically, you deploy them at the spot you are, and then when you move around, they can perform a heroic or attack in a different location. So as long as you could play essentially all 6, you could cover every spot on the board over time. So that's really a neat idea. Then we also have the Spider-Bot decoys. As long as this card is based up on the storyline, on your turn you may add 1 Spider-Bot token to your location. Once per villain turn, you may discard 1 Spider-Bot in your location to ignore 1 damage. So this is kind of good. You can keep reusing them, but you can use them as an attack or as a defense. Which is a really fun way to utilize this extra mechanic. Alright, then he has movement, move heroic, move attack, heroic attack, wild, and then he gets his genius intellect. This turn, you can treat all your action tokens as wild tokens. That's awesome. You basically can do whatever he wants. And then he has Parker Industries, getting any combination of 2 movement, heroic, or attack tokens. And if there's other one, he can use them all as wilds. So it doesn't matter which one you grabbed, which is also really fun. He has one other card, and only a few characters have had this. This is the bottom of the deck card. So this goes on the bottom of your deck. Once you draw this card, he has the final understanding. And this is a black effect, so you have to do it. If this card is in your hand, you must play it. At the end of your turn, you're KO'd. You may remove Superior Spider-Man from the game. If you do, on your next turn, choose another Spider-Man hero and play at any location. So this is really cool. It's just basically like him being like, I can't be Spider-Man. And you can swap him back to a different Spider-Man hero. Now, you could opt to play this very thematic and it has to be regular Spider-Man, or a version of Peter Parker Spider-Man, or you could just have it be any Spider character. How far you want to extend that is really up to you. So I was like, Iron Spider, Spider-Man. I don't know how many other Spider-Mans there were in the regular sets, but I would say it has to be, but you could be like Miles Morales Spider-Man or Spider-Gwen, even though technically he wouldn't turn into them, or Silk, or Spider-Punk, or Penny Parker, because they're not even Peter Parker. But yeah, you could definitely play that as loose or as close to the story as you want. But that's definitely a neat little idea. He also comes with an equipment card. He has web shooters, which works just like all the other ones. So again, lots of the Spider-Man characters get these. But he also comes with a second one. He has his mechanical spider arms. Use on your turn, heroic or attack, then turn this face down. So just to attack with his extra arms. And that says recharge. At the beginning of your turn, discard one action to turn his face up. So he just gets an additional ability over the other Spider-Man. Yes, this is definitely a cool character. Now again, that's the last card you're drawing, so by the time you run through your deck, it's either you taking a lot of damage from taking attacks, or you're right at the end of the game anyhow, and you're going to have a few turns maybe before you finish. If you're just normally drawing, you don't take damage. But that's still really cool. And again, we get to fight him as a villain as well. Also neat, you can have him fight off against Doc Ock. You can have the Spider-Man versus Doc Ock as a boss. So very cool. Alright, so that's what we have for Spider-Geddon, the hero side. So come back, check out part 2, or go over the 4 villains as well as the solo and team cards. See you guys later. Bye.